Drill Instructor Carr then had trained warriors from 73 different species across the galaxy. His reputation was legendary, a Velothian combat master whose 8 limbs could disarm any opponent in seconds. He'd seen every fighting style, every physical capability the known universe had to offer. Or so he thought, until the human arrived. Sergeant Maria Chen stepped onto the training deck of the Galactic Military Academy, looking utterly unremarkable. She stood barely 1.7 meters tall, possessed only 2 arms and 2 legs, and lacked any visible natural weapons. Carthen's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "You're the human instructor exchange?" he asked, his translator rendering his skepticism perfectly clear. "Yes, sir," Chen replied, setting down her gear bag. "Ready when you are." Carthen gestured to the assembled cadets, a mix of species representing the Confederation's finest military prospects. "Before we begin joint training, I'd like to observe your warm-up routine. Standard protocol for integrating new instructors." "Of course." Chen began stretching, and Carthen noted her flexibility with mild interest. Adequate, but nothing special. Then she started running. The track circled the training deck, exactly 5 kilometers. Carthen expected her to complete perhaps 2 laps at a decent pace. Humans were endurance specialists, after all, though most species found this trait bizarre rather than impressive. Chen didn't stop at 2 laps. Or 5. Or 10. She maintained a steady pace that would have winded most cadets, her breathing controlled and rhythmic. Carthen's interest grew as she passed 20 kilometers. 30. The cadets had stopped their own exercises to watch. At 50 kilometers, 10 full laps, she finally stopped. But instead of collapsing as any reasonable being would, she dropped to the ground and began something she called push-ups. Her body moved up and down with mechanical precision. 100 repetitions. Then, pull-ups on the overhead bars. 50 reps. Then burpees, a movement so violent and exhausting that several cadets felt tired just watching. 100 more. Carthen's confidence wavered. This was her warm-up? Chen finally stood, barely breathing hard, and smiled. "Sorry, sir. I'm a bit out of shape. Been behind a desk for 3 months. Usually I'd do double that." The training deck was silent. "Now then," Chen said, pulling combat wraps from her bag, "shall we discuss the human martial arts curriculum? I understand you wanted to evaluate our close-quarters combat techniques?" Carthen looked at his 8 limbs, his reinforced exoskeleton, his lifetime of combat mastery. Then he looked at this small, soft human who had just casually completed what would be a punishment exercise for his most elite cadets, and called it a warm-up. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we should begin with you demonstrating your techniques on me. I want to understand what Deathworld evolution produces." Chen's smile widened slightly. "If you're sure, sir. Should I go easy?" 20 minutes later, Carthen found himself on his back for the 7th time, all 8 limbs somehow tangled and useless. Chen had moved with frightening efficiency, using his own strength against him, targeting joints he didn't know could be exploited, and demonstrating a pain tolerance that bordered on disturbing. "How?" he gasped. Chen offered a hand to help him up. "My planet has 1.2 g gravity, poisonous atmosphere, predators in every ecosystem, and weather that actively tries to kill you, sir. Humans don't evolve to be the strongest or the fastest. We evolve to keep going when everything else stops. Our warm-ups prepare us for worlds that don't want us alive." She glanced at the stunned cadets. "So, who wants to learn how a Deathworlder fights?" Carthen had trained 73 species. After that day, he told everyone who would listen, the 74th was something else entirely. Not because humans were superior warriors, but because they treated the impossible as routine. Their warm-ups were other species' final exams. And that, Carthen realized, was the most terrifying lesson humanity had to teach.